got songs in my head. All right, let's go. Cue intro. What's up, it's Jan back at it again with another Nerdy Bookish video. This is gonna be my August wrap up. I just got back from my grandpa's funeral, well, day one of his funeral. The grind truly never stops, all right? It is like 9:30 at night. I'm just like, I look good today. I'm going to film. We're gonna try to get ahead. I have to start pre-filming for Spooktober. I'm still gonna try my hardest, my darndest to make that happen. But for now, we're gonna do my August wrap up. I have my handy dandy Stitch mug. Also, new balloons. Thank you so much for 4K. I think this is my first video that y'all will see after hitting it, so thank you so much. I have my sappy thank you grateful moment while blowing up the balloons as usual in a couple vlogs coming soon. Also Patreon launch coming soon and another readathon announcement coming soon. If y'all didn't know, this is how I do my wrap-ups. This is how I've been doing my wrap-ups since January of last year, so well over a year now, and I'm never looking back because I love it this way. The reread, rewrite, burn tag in wrap-up edition. I have all the books that I read in this little Stitch mug, the signature Stitch mug, and I pull out 3 at a time, and basically it's fuck, marry, kill, but make it bookish. Funny story, I actually thought I read 21 books in August, so I was like, oh my god, an even 7 rounds. Like, I don't have to, you know, do a wild card or whatever. Yeah, I only read 20. If you saw my cramming at the end of August vlog, I was so determined to read one more book to hit 21, and I was like, wow, this is awkward. So anyway, 20 books. We'll have one wild card where I could choose any of the 3 options. I have my reading journal here. I always start my wrap-ups with a recap. I also actually calculated the number of pages. We are a changed woman, okay? 5,283 pages. That's more than usual for me because I read, I think, like 3 or 4 manga this month. Still, reading is reading is reading. A book's a book's a book. Know what I mean? Number of BIPOC authors, 6, which, you know, out of 20, that's not the best ratio. I also read a lot of library books, so I only actually have a few physical copies here with me to hold up. Otherwise, I'll have the pictures of the covers right here. The best book I read in August was We Were Dreamers by Simu Liu. This was one of the 2 nonfiction books I read this month. If you didn't know, I try to read 1 nonfiction book a month at least. I listened to it on audio. I tried to read it physically, and then I kept hearing that the audiobook's a lot better and just it adds to the whole experience, and they were right. I mean, I feel like a lot of memoirs, if not all memoirs nowadays, are narrated by the author themselves, and I love Simu's voice. He just really added a lot to the writing. He's a really good writer too. He's the guy who played Shang-Chi, if you didn't know, which is my favorite Marvel movie, very close to Spider-Man. They're kind of tied, but I first heard about him from Kim's Convenience. Love that show. It takes place in Toronto. When I visited Toronto, I visited the little convenience store and it was so cute. It was a moment for sure. This one I obviously gave 5 stars. I also listened to a lot of audiobooks this month, so that was weird. But yeah, this one I listened to on audio, like I said, and he talks a lot about being Asian in the film industry and the acting industry, but a lot of it focused on his childhood and how his parents were abusive verbally and physically, so trigger warnings for that. As someone who was raised in an Asian household, I'm Filipino if you didn't know, I could relate significantly to this memoir. Not that my parents personally were abusive, but in terms of the high academic standards, the stereotypical high standards, it's just, it is what it is, you know? And like, for me, the stereotypes were true for me as well. I wish the stereotype of being good at math worked for me too, but instead I was crying every night trying to do my math homework. But that's beside the point. But yeah, I found this memoir really relatable, and the ending, like the last line was so strong. The writing in general was very impactful. It hit for sure, and I think I cried while driving and listening to this book. When an audiobook can bring me to tears, you know it's a good one, because that rarely happens. Audiobooks just usually don't do it for me. So the fact that this was the best book of the month says a lot. I want this physically so badly. I want it on my shelves. I will reread this someday because he has such good advice about just standing up for yourself, following your heart and what you want. And he was damn near a prodigy, you know? Like, he was one of those like gifted students parents because his parents pushed him so hard, but then that's not what his heart wanted. He wanted to be an actor. He wanted to, you know, do gymnastics, like all the shit. So it was just very inspiring. I loved this book so much. I could go on about it forever, but that is that. The worst book of the month was also an audiobook, The Therapist by B.A. Paris. I haven't read Behind Closed Doors by B.A. Paris. I do own it. This one was available, so I just randomly decided to listen to it, like on my way to and from work. It was just bad. It was anticlimactic. The twist was stupid. I was bored half the time. The only reason I kept listening to the audiobook was because I liked the narrator's accent. Again, a book's a book's a book. Like, it was just kind of passing time at that point. I gave The Therapist, I think, 2 stars. I don't know why I didn't give it 1 star. I think one thing shocked me. I remember my jaw dropping while I was driving once, but then it was like, again, anticlimactic because it wasn't what it made it seem. It was like, oh, and then it like snatched it back, you know? Like, it wasn't actually the thing I thought it was. It was dumb, hated it. We're gonna move on. Number of books left on my TBR, 6 out of 15. So I read 9 out of 15 books on my TBR, but I only read 9 from my TBR out of 20 books. So like, I don't know. I'm usually happy with that ratio if I made it into the double digits. I don't care how many I read that weren't on my TBR, but 9 could have been 10, you know? And then I did read a classic this month. This was my first classic of the year. I read Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. Tell me why I almost forgot I almost said by Junji Ito because he has a retelling or whatever. This one I gave 3 stars. Again, I listened to this on audio while following along. I liked the mystery aspect of it with Justine, I think that's her name, right? Justine, and the whole trial portion. But then towards the end, when it was from the monster's perspective, I got kind of lost and I just lost interest too. But overall, it wasn't a bad classic, you know? It went by pretty quickly with the audiobook. The audiobook was good too, at least the version that I ended up listening to, which I couldn't tell you which one I listened to be honest. It wasn't like dreadful. Like, obviously I gave it 3 stars, so I didn't absolutely hate my time here, but like, I don't know. I don't really see the hype, to be honest. No offense to people who absolutely love this book, but I lost interest about maybe 60% of the way through. I just wanted it to be over. I read this for my full moon readathon. If you didn't know, I hosted that all by myself in lieu of, is that the right way to use it? In lieu of a book club pick or like live discussion for August, because the full moons kept getting earlier and earlier, so I decided to host a readathon instead, which I want to thank you guys for again, because that was very successful and I am doing that again next year. I already have the prompts prepared. I'm so excited. That is that on Frankenstein. I did not participate in Buzzwordathon this month. I did read a couple 500+ page books, but they were manga. Orange volumes 1 and 2, which I really loved. I loved both of them. I gave both of them 4 stars. The second one made me cry. This is like a sci-fi-ish romance type thing. And y'all know me, I don't like sci-fi. So this was only sci-fi because it involved time travel manipulation type thing. This girl gets a bunch of letters from her future self, and she basically is on a mission. I feel deja vu because I said this exact thing in my vlog. She's on a mission to prevent her future self, her past self from making mistakes and like having regret. So her future self is writing letters to her saying what to do and not to do and what to try to stop from happening and things like that. So it's really interesting, and it has a lot of content warnings: suicide, suicidal ideation, grief, death of a parent, things like that. So do tread with caution if you're planning to read these manga. They are cute and fun, and they talk a lot about friendship, so they are enjoyable reads if you can, you know, get through the hard-hitting parts. Like I said, I keep track of the nonfiction books I read. So I read We Were Dreamers. I also reread Dear Sentheran by Akweke Emezi. I've said this before in the vlog that I just put up, but I've been rereading a lot, like more than usual lately this year, which is strange for me because I usually only reread like maybe 2 books max every year, but I have 2 rereads just in this wrap-up. Or no, I have 3 rereads, and one of them is an audiobook. Yeah, that's crazy to me. But this I gave 5 stars. I gave it 5 stars the first time I read it as well. This is the best memoir I've ever read. This and We Were Dreamers, like I said in the vlog that just went up as well. This is the best memoir in my opinion, writing-wise, that I've read, but in terms of relatability-wise, We Were Dreamers for sure. This made me cry both times that I read it, although I can't relate to Akweke Emezi in terms of, you know, race, sexuality, they're also a god, all these things, they're like spirituality and everything. We differ in all of that, but in terms of some of their experiences and the way they write about it, like they put language to a lot of my feelings that I could never have thought of myself to put into words like that the way they do. So it just astounds me. It was to the point that I dog-eared some pages because the quotes are just so good. I will keep rereading this book because it's so short and it packs a freaking punch, you know? That is the end of the recap. I cannot believe I talked for 15 minutes. Let's move on to the wrap up. All right, picking 3. So we have We Were Dreamers, The New Me by, I forgot this author's name. I got it from the library. Here's the cover. And then The Family Upstairs by Lisa Jewell, which was the 3rd reread that I was talking about. Of course, I would reread We Were Dreamers. That's a given. I would probably, damn. Okay, I'll burn The New Me because this was a very short literary fiction book and it was very monotonous. I listened to this on audio as well, but I also had the physical from the library. And the narrator was the author. It fit the tone, the voice of the story, obviously, because she wrote it, but was it Megan something? No, I don't know. The voice was very monotonous and bland and blunt and just like mundane because it only talks about like her daily life at work. Like the interactions between characters was literally like she said hello, I said hello back, she asked how my day was, and I wanted to say this, this, and this, but what I really said was, yeah, so it was like literally a play-by-play of her daily mundane life. And it was entertaining because it had some dry humor and very just like a sarcastic overtone, but I would never reread it. I don't care enough to rewrite it. It's there, it's done, it exists. I read it. I never want to experience it again. I might read some of her other books, probably not. Let's be real, probably not. But I gave The New Me 3 stars because, like I said, it did make me laugh out loud a few times, even just from the audiobook. So again, like to get visceral reactions out of me from an audiobook, like that says a lot. The Family Upstairs I would rewrite. I reread this because I wanted to get to The Family Remains by Lisa Jewell, which is like the companion novel. I know I didn't have to remember too much from this one, but I remembered that like the key plot points, so I was like, okay, let me just like passively listen to the audiobook, right? I would rewrite it. I don't know how. I feel like some of the chapters kind of dragged, like it wasn't very straightforward at some points, so that I guess, but I really liked the twist of this one. I liked the reveals. One of my favorite scenes was this part where the kid was on drugs and he was tripping really hard and he reveals this one thing and I was like, oh, he really went there. Family Upstairs, I gave 4 stars, and I believe I gave it 4 stars the first time as well. Oh god, this is gonna be the longest freaking wrap up ever, isn't it? All right, the next 3. The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. Oh god, The Wicked King by Holly Black, and then Twilight. Here they are. I have all 3 physically. So my 3 rereads were this, Dear Senthiran, and The Family Upstairs. I read this for the Twilight read-along hosted by Sarah Shelves, Cami from Burrows and Books, and a few other hosts. This was the only one I've read before, so the rest of this read along is all gonna be new to me, so that will be interesting. And I did read the entirety of the Folk of the Air trilogy. I will link that vlog down below. I'm very proud of that vlog. I tried to do the 48-hour timer method and stopped it like when I wasn't reading, and it just, you'll see, just watch that vlog. It's a fun one and it's spoiler free. All my vlogs are spoiler free, by the way. Like unless I say deliberately like spoiler filled, then just assume everything's spoiler free. I just indicate that there's spoiler free in the title when it's like dedicated reading vlogs so that people actually watch it, you know? Anyway, I would reread The Cruel Prince. I gave this one 5 stars. This was my first time reading this trilogy. And honestly, I'm glad I waited till all the hype was over and it was like my little thing where I was the only one hyping it up for myself, and it was a good time. I just love the betrayals in this series, the hate to love romance. I love Jude and Carden. I love their banter, attitude toward each other. It's great. I love this first one. I love the vibes. It was so easy to follow the politics and everything and like the world building. Holly Black is a great writer, so I would reread this for sure. God, people are gonna kill me. I would rewrite The Wicked King, and people are gonna kill me because I'm obviously burning Twilight now because I have. Okay, rewriting The Wicked King to make it not focusing on the undersea because I don't like books that revolve around water. That's why this was 4 stars for me. I got bored because I'm not interested in the queen of the undersea and the kingdom underwater and stuff. Like, I didn't like that. But nevertheless, I tabbed the shit out of it. I still enjoyed this story very much. This had a lot of rails as well, I think. See, this is what happens when I binge, as if I binge series all the time, but like when I read too many of the same authors' books or like the same genres of books, like I get them all mixed up. So that's the same, like I don't remember which particular book certain things happened in. I just remember in one of them, like people were getting slashed and murdered, stabbed left and right. Might have been the Cruel Prince, but I'm sure there were some bloodbaths in The Wicked King as well. So yeah, that means I would burn Twilight. I've read it twice. I'm not gonna read it again, probably not ever. It was fun, it was nostalgic, it was fun annotating it for sure, just writing down my every thought. I'll keep it because it's part of the box set that Sarah and Claire got for me, but I think I'm done. I think that was my closure in my reread. I'll watch the movies again, but I would burn it because objectively, like I said in my vlog, the writing is just not 5-star material. I gave it 4 stars upon reread. I don't think I rated it on Goodreads the first time, so I don't know. I read it in like middle school. It was a fun time overall, but this one is getting burnt today. The next 3, oh, I already grabbed 3. I was gonna do a little visual with the Stitch mug, but I already grabbed 3. We have Our Crooked Hearts by Melissa Albert, which I got from the library. I Want to Eat Your Pancreas, another manga that I got from the library. Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney. I would reread Our Crooked Hearts. I really enjoyed this one, and I feel like some parts I kind of zoned out, but I really love the writing, the whimsy, the witchiness. I don't know if I went into this knowing it was witchy, but I really enjoyed it. It does take place in Chicago, but it doesn't deliberately say that. Like it just says elements of Chicago, like the Blue Line and Clark Street and Pilsen and things like that, and I was like, wait a second, and I had to look up the setting and I was like, damn, I wish I weren't right. But yeah, I really like this one. It's dual timeline and it talks about like 2 different generations of witches, how her mom was acting weird, all these secrets and lies that the mom was keeping from the family. It was really good. I just picked it up on a whim because I saw it was available at the library that I work at, so I was like, let me just give it a go. I think I read that for my full moon readathon as well, for the prompt, read a book with an animal on the cover, because it has a little rabbit head on it. I would rewrite Daisy Darker because I guessed like half the twists in this book, the twists and reveals. I have a spoiler-free vlog of this as well. Oh, I read this for my full moon readathon too, so I'll link that vlog down below. This is an And Then There Were None retelling. This just came out August 30th, and I love Alice Feeney's Rock, Paper, Scissors. I love her writing in general. I've read Sometimes I Lie and His and Hers as well. All I have to read is I Know Who You Are, and then I think maybe one other book, I don't know. I really like the character Nana, and that's what kept it at 3 stars for me. McKay and I were talking and he said this is 3 stars at best, and honestly, yep, exactly. It's a low 3 for me. It was so predictable. I feel like if you've read enough thrillers, you can kind of use deductive reasoning. I wrote down my theory on page 37 and then I was correct. And she does this thing where she uses a lot of cliche phrases and it was just overdone. I usually liked it. I loved it in Rock, Paper, Scissors. She has like little life tidbits. She did the same thing in His and Hers, and Sometimes I Lie I listened to an audio, so I don't quite recall, but in this one she definitely overdid it and I could not stand it. That's another reason I deducted stars, and it was just, I don't know, I think I'm over And Then There Were None retellings. I love And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. I think I've read 2 or 3 of them now and I'm just like over it. So I would rewrite that, make the twist twistier, because I did enjoy it for the most part. I just wish I were wrong, like guessing, you know? Which means I have to burn I Want to Eat Your Pancreas, just because it's a manga and like there are so many more manga out there that I could read instead of rereading or rewriting this one. This one had a really good twist that had me screaming. I'll link that vlog down below. This one is about a girl with pancreatic cancer and she's basically just impulsively living life because she knows she's dying, obviously, and she only tells her mom and one other person about her illness. It does get really heavy, so again, tread with caution with that one. The whole I Want to Eat Your Pancreas thing is basically just because the guy wants to take the pain away from her, which honestly, very clever title. So glad I read that one, but I would burn it out of those 3. The next 3, so we have The Queen of Nothing by Holly Black, Orange Volume 1, and then Dear Sentharan. Dear Sentharan, reread, obviously, already talked about it. I would rewrite The Queen of Nothing. There's this one scene with a snake that I just did not enjoy. It was weird, and then there's this whole like Beauty and the Beast moment, and it wasn't what I wanted, but I don't know what I wanted either way. I know people have mixed feelings about this one. I did like the snowy, wintry atmosphere. I think Holly Black portrayed that really well, as she does with all her settings and descriptions and world building. I gave The Queen of Nothing 4 stars, so I did enjoy my time here. This one did a lot of that YA fantasy shit where the main character like recalls something in italic, and it's like just these random quotes that have nothing to do with the story. And this one, some of them were so irrelevant, like it was literally about black coffee being as black as the eyes of the king of Elfheim. And it's like, why? Why do I need to keep reading that line? The betrayals and the way this ended and stuff, I did enjoy. I liked the reveals and the little subtleties that Harden drops. Yeah, I'm gonna give too much away if I keep talking. I would burn Orange Volume 1. Again, there are so many more manga out there that I could read that I don't need to reread Orange. I think the only manga that I would reread are Junji Ito, truly. And maybe Monster, because I own all 9 of them now. I bought the box set for this like read-along buddy read thing my friends and I are doing, and it was recommended to me by Bree from Locked Booktition and Ashley from Bookish Realm, so it's now a whole thing. It has its own place on my shelf next to my Twilight box set. They're gorgeous. Anyway, that's not what this is about. We're gonna move on because this video is gonna be 10 years long. Dead End Girls by Wendy Hurd, which was a library book. The Therapist by B.A. Paris. Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I would burn The Therapist. Already talked about it. Worst book of the month. I would reread Frankenstein because I feel like if I read it again, I'll definitely get more out of it than the last time I read it, just because it's a classic and I feel like I zoned out a lot because I was just trying to get through it for my readathon. I would definitely reread this, especially this pretty edition, come on. And I would rewrite Dead End Girls, which I gave 3 stars. I listened to this one on audio, even though I did have the physical version, the library. I don't know why I kept doing that this month, but this one is a YA thriller about these 2 girls who basically fake their own deaths and run away, and there are murders along the way. They almost get caught along the way. It was just a fun, adventurous time following them, you know, across the country, having fake passports, meeting all these people, trying to hide their identities, avoid getting on the news and things like that. I picked this up because Wendy Hurd wrote She's Too Pretty to Burn, which was one of my favorite books of 2021. Both of these books are sapphic. I feel like She's Too Pretty to Burn was done better, had one of my favorite tropes in it. It did shock me. This one, there was a twist. I don't quite remember it, but I remember being kind of surprised by it. I did like the way it was revealed because this one was also dual timeline. I love a good dual timeline book. I just didn't like the way this ended pretty much. I feel like it was a very tied in a ribbon type thing, you know, neatly knotted type of ending. So I would rewrite the ending probably, long story short. All right, I think we're almost done here. We have Orange Volume 2, Exalted by Anna Dorn, which was a runner-up for Best Book of the Month. And then Love and Other Words. Both of these ended up on my favorite shelf. So yeah, these are a couple of my new all-time favorite books, and they both happen to be pink. So again, I would burn Orange Volume 2, especially compared to these 2. I just, again, with the manga. Like I said, Orange Volume 2 made me cry, so take that as you will. It was a good story. I really enjoyed that duology. I loved the friendship. It was very ride or die type of friendship. It was a cute story for sure. Yeah, ride or die friendship is pretty much like what sums up the whole duology. I would reread Exalted because it was wild. I only know one other person, Megan from Books and Blazers. She's the only one I've heard talk about this and who's talked about it with me. It's incredible. The twist had me screaming for literal days. I'm still screaming about it. It's dual perspective. This is also sapphic, but one of the women is a self-hating, a lesbian-hating lesbian. So there are some homophobic comments in this, so trigger warning. And then the other woman is making a living by reading people's birth charts. So she's really into astrology. She's basically just like working from home from her computer, and she's reading all these people's birth charts, making conclusions about it and making money from that, right? And then she finds this one guy's birth chart, which is Exalted, which means like all the stars and planets and whatever are aligned on this guy's birthday. And that's what Exalted means. She hunts him down. He happens to be living in her vicinity. Coincidental, right? Or maybe she travels to him. I don't remember, but she finds him, falls in love, they do the damn thing, and then there's a twist. And it's a great twist. I would reread this. It was hilarious. I tabbed so much in this book. I was laughing out loud so many times. This is another one I picked up on a whim just because of the cover, really. I picked it up from the library and then I read a few pages and I was like, I need to buy this. I bought it the next day after I started it, and now it's an all-time favorite. So I would highly recommend this. And when you do take my high recommendation, I highly recommend you scream to me about it because it's so good. It's so good. It's so good. Love in Other Words is really good too. This one made me tear up. It's a second chance romance. I had very low expectations for this one because it's Christina Lauren and I just am not into those, you know, basic romance authors. I'm just not. I have low expectations for a lot of them. Emily Henry being the exception. Book Lovers disappointed me, but that's a whole different, I'll link that vlog down below if I remember. That's a whole different story. Christina Lauren, I read The Unhoneymooners and it was like a low 3 for me. I listened to it on audio. It just wasn't it. But Cami, Joey's calling me. Hi, I'm filming.
Sorry.
Say hi to the camera.
Hello, camera.
All right, I'll call you when I'm done.
Okay.
Cami has said that I would love this book. Renee said I would love this book. I actually got 2 copies of this book for my birthday from Kat from BookTube Beginnings and Renee. So I'm really glad I loved it, but I would rewrite it because I don't want to burn it. And I can't burn it because I burnt orange. Burnt orange. That's a good color. It's one of my favorite colors. Ah, ooh, ooh. If you know that reference from that one vlog with Joey in it, you're a real one. I would rewrite this by resolving the main issue in a more drawn out way. Like, there's no way it only took that much for things to be forgiven. And I don't want to say too much because, again, I don't want to spoil anything, but I just think the resolution came too quickly for what it was. The reveals were really good as to why these 2 friends had such a long falling out period. So yeah, that's how I would rewrite it. But I really enjoyed the second chance romance in this. Anything second chance romance, let me know down below if you think I'd love the story. This one just made me want to give everyone a big hug. Like, I'm so in love with this book. I love this friendship, this couple. I would reread this for sure, but I would reread Exalted more. So rewrite is the next best thing. I love this. I used to like be iffy about this cover too, but it's honestly so cute, especially compared to the original. The original is so ugly. And this is like one of those floppy romance paperbacks. Okay. Am I supposed to have 2 left? Shouldn't I only have 1? No, because then I did 6 rounds and then 2 left. Okay, never mind. I'm stupid. I got the 21 and the thing mixed up, so okay. The last 2 are Exciting Times. This is a literary fiction that I read in my most recent vlog. It was super short. I listened to like the last 60 pages on audio and did like a hybrid reading situation. It's written by an Irish queer autistic author, which made for a really good story. And people compared this book to Sally Rooney, which I can totally see. The writing style is very similar for sure, and the quirky characters, they got it down for sure. And I gave Exciting Times 4 stars. And then the last one is The Liminal Zone by Junji Ito, which I gave 5 stars. I would obviously reread The Liminal Zone. It's Junji Ito. It was so good. Every story in the story collection I absolutely loved. And one of them even involved religion, but it was like creepy. Absolutely loved it. Exciting Times, I feel like I want to say rewrite, but if I had to, I would burn. It was alright. It was alright. But in terms of rewriting it, I don't even remember it really. It talks about toxic relationships really well, like situationships, toxic men, and like people using people for certain things. This one also has a sapphic relationship. I'm trying to think of why I'm like inclined to rewrite it. I don't know. I don't even remember the ending really. Do I? I think it was well done. Maybe I'll just say reread. No, I feel like I wouldn't reread it, but I wouldn't burn it. So like rewrite is the only option, right? I feel like one, if not more than one, of the characters need a little bit more of a personality. I think some of them were indistinguishable, and there were also some side characters that I felt like were unnecessary. We'll do that and give them a little more pizzazz, you know? He's empty. That is my August wrap up. If you made it to the end of this video, put a pine tree emoji in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. Hope y'all had a great day. Stay safe and stay positive always, and I'll see y'all in my next one. Bye!